History remembers the giants, but it is won by the swarm. While German engineers were obsessing over the thickness of a tiger's armor or the complexity of a panther's transmission, a different kind of revolution was happening in the factories of Detroit and the Ural Mountains. This wasn't a fight of snipers. It was a fight of assembly lines. Imagine a wave of steel so vast it swallows the horizon. For every tiger the Germans painstakingly handcrafted, the Allies unleashed 100 Shermans and T-34s. The industrial swarm was a philosophy of good enough. These weren't intended to be the best tanks in a one-on-one duel. They were intended to be the most reliable, most mass-produced, and most logistically superior machines in human history. From the rugged, unrefined brutality of the Soviet T-34 to the sophisticated, some modular versatility of the American M4 Sherman, this is the story of how the Allies turned the tide of World War II. This is the breakdown of the machines that broke the Reich. In 1941, the German generals were confident. They had the best training and the best tactics. But then, they encountered the T-34. It was a machine that shouldn't have worked. It was crude, it was uncomfortable, and it was finished with a sledgehammer. But it changed everything. First, we must talk about the sloped armor revolution. The T-34 didn't invent sloped armor, but it was the first to make it the core of its design. By angling the 45mm front plate, Soviet engineers effectively doubled its protection without adding the weight of a heavy tank. To a German Panzer III commander, the T-34 looked like a sleek, low-profile ghost. Lancels that would have pierced a flat plate simply glanced off. It was a masterpiece of passive defense that forced the Germans to redesign their entire tank fleet. Second, the diesel advantage. While the rest of the world's tanks were running on highly flammable gasoline, the T-34 used a massive V12 aluminum diesel engine. Diesel fuel is harder to ignite, meaning a T-34 was less likely to become a torch when hit. More importantly, it gave the tank incredible range and torque. The T-34 was a cross-country monster. It could navigate the thick, soul-crushing mud of the Russian Rasputitsa seasons, while German tanks got bogged down and abandoned. It was a tank built for the geography of Russia itself. Third, the philosophy of disposable war. A T-34 was not built to last 20 years. It was built to last for its average life expectancy on the battlefield, which was often less than 6 months. The interiors were unpainted. The welds were rough. There was no radio in early models. The commander signaled with flags. But this lack of refinement meant that a single Soviet factory, like Tankograd, could produce thousands of units a month. It was the ultimate good-enough weapon. It was crude, it was loud, and it was unstoppable. Across the Atlantic, the Americans were taking a different approach. The M4 Sherman wasn't just a tank, it was a masterpiece of global logistics. It had to be built in Michigan, shipped across an ocean, and then repaired in a field in France with parts that could be swapped in minutes. First, let's look at standardization. The Sherman was designed to fit into the hold of a standard transport ship. It was designed with a specific width and weight, so it wouldn't collapse European bridges. But its greatest strength was its interchangeable parts. If a Sherman's engine blew up, a mechanic didn't need a factory-trained engineer to fix it. He just needed a wrench and a crate from the nearest supply depot. While a German Tiger sat for weeks waiting for a custom-fitted gear, a Sherman was back in the fight in hours. Second, the advanced subsystems. Despite being called inferior in armor, the Sherman was actually much more advanced than its rivals in key areas. It featured a gyroscopic stabilizer for its main gun, a piece of technology the Germans never perfected. This allowed a Sherman to fire accurately while moving across uneven ground, a massive advantage in a meeting engagement. It also featured wet stowage in later models, surrounding the ammunition with a mixture of water and glycerin to prevent the horrific explosions that earned early Shermans the nickname Ronsons, because they lit the first time, every time. Third, the growth potential. The Sherman was the ultimate Lego tank. When the 75mm gun became obsolete, the Americans fitted the high-velocity 76. When that wasn't enough, the British created the Firefly by stuffing a massive 17-pounder anti-tank gun into the turret. There were Shermans with flamethrowers, Shermans with rocket launchers, and even duplex drive Shermans that could swim onto the beaches of Normandy. It was the most adaptable platform of the war, a machine that evolved as fast as the conflict itself. This is the core of the industrial swarm philosophy. We often focus on the duel, one Tiger versus one Sherman. In that scenario, the Tiger usually wins. But the war wasn't a duel. It was an industrial marathon. Consider the statistics. Germany produced approximately 1,350 Tiger IS. In the same span of time, the United States produced nearly 50,000 Shermans. The Soviet Union produced over 84,000 T-34s. This meant that for every German heavy tank on the field, there were roughly 40 to 50 Allied tanks. A German crew could be the best in the world. They could destroy 5, 10, or even 15 enemy tanks. But the 16th tank would eventually get around their flank. The swarm didn't need to be better. It just needed to be persistent. Furthermore, we must look at recovery and repair. The Allies developed incredible specialized recovery vehicles. If a Sherman was knocked out but not destroyed, a recovery crew would drag it back, weld a patch over the hole, hosed out the interior, and have it back at the front by morning. The Germans, with their complex interleaved wheels and heavy weight, often had to blow up their own tanks to prevent them from falling into enemy hands because they couldn't be easily towed. The swarm wasn't just about building tanks, it was about keeping them in the fight. The T-34 and the M4 Sherman were the true victors of the War of the Gears. They proved that in a global conflict, reliability, ease of repair, and massive volume are more important than individual technical perfection. The German Iron Giants were the predators of the battlefield, but the industrial swarm was the tide that washed them away. Technical brilliance creates legends, but industrial might creates empires. These were the tanks of the people, built by factory workers in Pittsburgh and Chelyabinsk to crush a tyranny of steel. But what happens when the war ends and the two members of the swarm turn on each other? Subscribe to witness the final evolution. Part 3. The Secret Monsters, the Super Heavies, and the dawn of the main battle tank is coming next. The race for the ultimate weapon never truly ended. Stay tuned.